Doctor, can we assume that we all have some level of toxicity, heavy metal toxicity in our body, and what are some of the signs that maybe people can tell, or is there a good test available to
Well,
know?
yeah, I mean, everybody has some degree, but it's a pick your poison thing. You know, are you a big fish eater? Do you have dental amalgams? You know, well then you have some mercury. Do you work with guns? Do you pack your own bullets? Well, you're going to have a lead toxicity issue. You know, is it old lead houses? You're going to have that. Everybody has some lead, especially, you know, people over 40. You know, there's not as much lead exposure to the kids now unless they're living in an area that has lead. But the question is how to look at it, and you know, how do we determine that we have some toxicity? There are tests. What used to be used are called challenge tests, where they give you a chelator and see what comes out. There's a bunch of problems with those. I mean, they were a good general approach when they came out, because the metals themselves, they were hard to see with the technology we had there unless you amplified what was coming out. But you don't really need those anymore. We have what we call a tri-test, where we do blood, hair, and urine. We're separating different forms of mercury. We can see down to the part per trillion range. We can see everything that we need to see to tell you how much you have and how well you're getting rid of it. The challenge test, that's only for mercury though. The challenge test will work for the other metals, but blood tests and urine tests are pretty valid for other metals as well. There's some in which a challenge test is better. But no matter how you test and see how much you have, the question of toxicity is very different than the question of load or how much you have. Because toxicity isn't a load. We don't set a bar and we say, well, I mean, the mainstream medical world tries to do this. They say, well, there's the bar. Below here, you're not toxic, and above here, you're toxic. So if the bar's 10, 9.9 is fine, 10.1, you got to go to the hospital. You know, and this is absurd. I mean, it's completely absurd, because toxicity is the body's response to a level of the toxin. There are targets, biochemical targets in your body that the toxins fit into. They mangle this enzyme, that enzyme, these membranes, this transport system. But you have defense mechanisms against that too. So one of us will get hit harder than another. There may be 5 of us in this room. We all have exactly the same level, but one person's very toxic, another person has some chronic problems, and the other guy's fine. And so this is really where I focus my work, is figuring out what the aspects of the system are. 1, that move it out, and 2, that protect you from its presence. And it turns out that most of that revolves around the glutathione system. And people talk about glutathione a lot, the antioxidant, but glutathione does many, many things in your body, and it does those all through the action of different enzymes and proteins. These proteins are transport proteins that will move things out of the body. The enzymes will link glutathione together with the toxins. So when you have all of that working, 1, you start moving stuff out, and 2, you're more resistant to the level that's still in your body. So back to your original question of how do we know we're toxic? What are the typical metal toxic things? Well, mercury in particular, all metals can hit lots of different enzyme systems and lots of different biochemical systems. So it can affect a lot of different people a lot of different ways. But if we took just the major ones, pressing down on the system as a metaphor, wearing a lead blanket, say, is a good thing to look at. And how does that manifest? Well, mentally, depression; physically, chronic fatigue. So these people that are just worn out and bummed out, that can often be a metal toxicity problem. But it can go the other way, where anxiety, they're always anxious. Or they can be going back and forth between depression and anxiety. These are very metal catalyzed problems. Also paranoia. One of the biggest things that I see in the clientele that comes to me that's really sick, or maybe the ones that I don't end up dealing with directly, they come to you, they know they have a problem, they ask you about it, you tell them, yeah, that fits the bill for the problem, and here's how you go about doing it, and they don't trust you. They came to you, they say, I think I got a problem. You say, yeah, you do. And they're like, you're lying to me. And then they leave. And my distributors see this too. They say, "Oh my God, you were just in this interview. We got the next round of calls, and there was again this subset of people that ask you about the problem and then hang up on you." And so I mean, it's very hard to be honest with yourself when you've got all of these problems. But honestly, looking at your mental status and seeing how that is. And then physically, I'd said the depression or slowing down of the system. I'd said in the Chinese terms, there's that weighing down, that adrenal fatigue plus an irritability. That's very much an amalgam thing when you have it from amalgams. But other metals can do it as well. Joint problems, GI problems, cardiovascular problems, hormonal problems. In women, thyroid problems are so often toxicity. Very, very often. If they have dental amalgams or a lot of exposure to other metals, look for them. The ones that really hit the thyroid are mercury, cadmium, and arsenic because they prevent the conversion from T4 to T3. That's the T3 is the active thyroid hormone. And some of them just give you a hypothyroid where the whole thing is down. And so you can see it's spanning a lot of things. It's not just this or this. And on some of the websites that deal with mercury toxicity, like DAMS is one of them, DAMS, the IAOMT website, Consumers for Dental Truth. All of these have questionnaires where they'll break down the different symptoms into systems, biochemical systems. And you can mark off, I have this many symptoms in this category, this many in that one, this many in that one, and get an idea of how these are all adding up, whether this might be a metals issue for you. But because of the vastness of the different areas you can hit, it is a little bit tricky.